point, you can decide as a Scrum Master to let them know that, okay, let's divide this product backlog item and let's split it into two. So at this point, the product backlog item can be divided and it could be moved to another sprint, or they could just commit that product backlog item again entirely in that current sprint. So after this, the product backlog items to be worked on in that sprint would then be moved to the sprint backlog. The sprint goal will be set, and the sprint goal is like the summary of work and value, the summary of work and value that will be delivered in the product increment. That means you ask a question like, so guys, after we've moved all these product backlog items to done, what do we hope to achieve? What are we going to achieve if we have moved all these things to done? So you just help them pick, choose a sprint goal. So after all of this, the development team will then define their tasks and define it. And then they now create a plan on how they'll get the work done. So after they move the product backlog item from the product backlog to the sprint backlog, then they define the tasks, get a sprint goal as well. So the planning just helps to make the team focused, and it is usually between 2 to 4 hours, depending on the sprint length. If it's a 2-week sprint, you can run your sprint planning for 2 hours. If it's a 1 month sprint, you can run it for 4 hours. Really, it depends on the length of the sprint. So overall, the outcome of the sprint planning would be the sprint goal, the sprint backlog, and the sprint plan for completing the work. So to facilitate the sprint planning again, always make sure that you use visualization, because it is a great tool. You ensure that the backlog is visible to everyone so that you can promote this shared understanding and visualization. So you remind the team of the purpose and the outcome of the sprint planning. And remember that you should always leave space for discussions, for questions, for collaboration that may arise. And the team may also have issues deciding the sprint goal. Like if you ask them that question, that what do we aim to achieve? They may have issues deciding the sprint goal. So you can just help them as a Scrum Master by asking questions like, what do we hope to achieve? And because it will help them understand what their focus should be. And it is important to know that it is the developers that should move the product backlog items from the ordered product backlog into the sprint backlog, so that it will encourage ownership of the plan. And they will just naturally ask questions and have discussions around the product backlog item. And also the developers should be the one to decide how the work will be done. Make sure that they decide how they want to work on this product backlog item, because it is what they should do. And while facilitating, you should ensure that the developers' voices are heard. You should ensure that the developers' voices are heard. And you can also encourage them to visualize their plan, just for transparency's sake. So after all of this, you could ask questions like, is everyone comfortable with the plan? Is the sprint goal, is it clear to everyone? So if there are more questions and more concerns, you may explore them, but make sure that it is within the time box, and ensure that there's also enough information for the sprint to get started in the coming days. So if everyone is clear about the plan and the sprint goal, if everyone is clear about the sprint goal and the sprint plan, then you should just ensure that the whole team, they are ready to commit to that sprint goal and they are ready to commit to that sprint. So what are the importance of sprint planning? So the sprint planning helps the team to understand the scope of work and makes them more involved. And without sprint planning, there may not be a concrete plan for the sprint. And the sprint planning also enhances transparency, as the team, they share and then they talk about the necessary information and they all work together to achieve the same goal. And everyone is also going to be on the same page. So the probability of the project going sideways is really reduced, because the visibility of the team, the visibility of the sprint goal is improved as well. Daily Scrum. So daily Scrum is also a very, very important Scrum ceremony. So after you've done your sprint planning, once the plan is established for the sprint, the team will have to follow up on the progress of the task by having a daily Scrum. It is sometimes called daily stand-up. So the daily stand-up is time boxed for 15 minutes. It is done at the same time and at the same place. It is called daily stand-up by some teams because some teams actually do this while standing up, like teams that are not working remotely, they do this daily Scrum, this daily stand-up while standing up so that it could be kept short and focused. So in this meeting, obstacles, blockers, impediments that could actually affect or impact the flow of work is discussed. So one technique for facilitating this Scrum event is using the 3 main questions technique. So these 3 questions is just to ensure that the development team answer 3 questions. They are, what did I do yesterday to help meet the sprint goal? What will I do today to help meet the sprint goal? And are there any impediments that are blocking me or the development team from meeting the sprint goal? So the result of these questions is awareness, because if there are any impediments, the team will talk about it and they'll talk about how it can be eliminated. So according to the Scrum Guide again, the development team are the only one mandated to attend this ceremony. So the Scrum Master just ensures that the meeting is properly time boxed and they ensure that this meeting takes place. This daily Scrum is very effective because it conveys the necessary information, and the meeting is focused on inspecting the sprint and adaptation as well. So it gives the Scrum team the opportunity to inspect themselves and adapt their approaches if they need to. And after the daily Scrum, the team may meet up in the parking lot to discuss the details of the meeting if needed. That sometimes they might have more questions, or they might just need to talk about the impediments more, and maybe one of the development team have questions or have issues, and another development team could actually help. So instead of like elongating the meeting, as a Scrum Master, you're supposed to make sure that most of the meetings are time boxed. You just let them know that, okay, the daily stand-up is over and we can move to the parking lot. The parking lot is like maybe another separate meeting that you can create for them to just talk about these problems and so that they can help themselves. And it's not like it doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every daily stand-up. It happens sometimes, but as a Scrum Master, you just want to ensure that the meeting is 15 minutes. So, and if they need to offer assistance to themselves, if needed, they can move that to the parking lot. And as a Scrum Master, you have to help your team understand that this event will help them to move forward faster in their sprint goal. So another technique to help facilitate this event is work the board, or if it is a team that is working remotely, it's work the wall. And this technique is just focused on the work in progress and the items that the team are working on during the sprint. So it helps the team members know what is in progress, what is blocked, what is done, what is left for them to do, and it is a good technique to help the team stay focused. It targets the work being done rather than the individual. So it just instead of you saying, okay, Ben, what did you do today? Ben, any updates? Or Ben, what did you do today? What are any impediment? Instead of you doing all those 3 questions, you could just check the board. Okay, we have this in progress. What's going on with this ticket, guys? Oh, we have a blocker. What's going on, guys? Oh, this has still to do. You just walk through the board. And it is a good technique actually to help the team focused, and it targets the work done, like I said, rather than the individual. And it is important that the team talk about how they are doing towards achieving the sprint goal as well, because sometimes This technique may may enable the team lose focus on the sprint goal. So as a Scrum Master, if you are using this technique for your daily Scrum, just make sure that they are not losing focus on the sprint goal. So make sure that they talk about how they are also how they are working towards achieving the sprint goal. So to recap, the Scrum team come together in the daily Scrum to give reports on the sprint progress. The Scrum Master, they facilitate and they ensure the meeting is properly time boxed, and the developers, they give the reports. The importance of this daily Scrum is that it helps to improve communication and collaboration within the team. It promotes good decision making because they would come together and talk about impediments and ways to solve them, and the impediments are thereby identified on time instead of, because if you have daily Scrum, that means every day you are inspecting the sprint, every day you are talking about if you have impediment or not. So impediments are usually identified on time and they are also resolved promptly. And then it promotes self-organization because the development team are accountable to create a done increment. And by having a daily Scrum, they have to always inspect their own progress regularly. Remember that as a Scrum Master, you want to always aim towards having a self-organized team. So this daily Scrum promotes self-organization because they are responsible for their work. They're responsible to inspecting their own progress regularly, and it would make the team more self-organized, like I said. And then it improves transparency again because all the team members will be in the know of what is going on within the sprint. They know what this person is doing. They know what is blocking this person. There's actually transparency, and they understand what may be blocking the team's progress and why the team's progress is being blocked. And then we have the sprint review. So remember I said that the daily Scrum inspect and adapt within the sprint, but this sprint review, it inspects and adapts events for the Scrum team and their stakeholders. So the sprint review is one of the most important ceremonies in Scrum again, because it's like a demo session done by the end of the sprint for like 1 to 4 hours, depending on the sprint length. If it's a 2-week sprint, it could be like between 1 to 2 hours. If it's a 4-week sprint, it could be 4 hours. And it is the second to the last Scrum ceremonies in a sprint. The people who attend are the product owner, the Scrum Masters, the development team, the stakeholders, and anyone involved in the management process in general. So yeah, the Scrum team and the stakeholders, they review the accomplishments in the sprint. And based on this information, they collaboratively discuss what to do next. So the main purpose is just to inspect the outcome of the sprint really, and the focus of the sprint is to collaborate. And it's on collaboration about what was done in that sprint and what they've learned in that sprint. And maybe they need to adapt their backlog based on what they've learned. So one way to facilitate this as a Scrum Master is that, one, you allow your development team or your developers to demonstrate an incremental working project that has been done during the sprint to the stakeholders. You demonstrate that, okay, in this sprint, we're able to develop this is working, maybe we're able to develop the header or the login and all the stages. They just demonstrate an incremental working project. And then, of course, stakeholders would have questions, and the development team would just answer any questions that may arise concerning that increment. And then you as a Scrum Master, you could also explain the team's progress. You could use metrics like the burn down chart that shows the total scope increase, the total scope, and work that has been completed and what is remaining during the timeline. You can also use the velocity chart that shows a team's actual planned work and the actual work that was completed over a time frame. And then you allow the product owner or the business analyst to discuss the product backlog as it stands. So the product owner or the business analyst, they provide an overview of the sprint goal. and the product backlog items that was selected for inclusions in the sprint. So they could also sometimes remind the stakeholders of previous product increments, and they also share the product backlog and the next set of product backlog items for the next sprint. So sometimes they provide like a projected overall completion of the project based on the team's current progress. And then the stakeholders, you allow the stakeholders to give feedbacks. And then the whole team would discuss the most valuable thing to do next, just in case the stakeholder thinks there's been a change in the market demand. For example, if after you demonstrate some payment gateways like maybe just Visa and debit, and Visa, a credit or debit card payments, and then the stakeholders could feel like, oh, well, there's been a change in the market demand. Now, a lot of people use PayPal to make payments. A lot of people use Stripe, Klarna. So why not let us add that to this project? I mean, Visa, credit or debit payment is really good, but let's be versatile. Let's give our markets more things to do. So as a business, as a product owner, or as a team or a business analyst, you take all these feedbacks, and they just convert it into new user stories in the product backlog items. So they take these feedbacks, they write it down, and then they go back to their sprint backlog, to their product backlog, and they put all these changes. I mean, it could be that these changes is like very important. So they know what to work on in the next sprint. So if it's very important, they know what to prioritize on and what to adapt on and what changes they need to make. This Scrum event usually helps the team learn from the stakeholders, and it helps them understand what may be the most valuable and the top priority for the next sprint. Now, the importance of this sprint review is that it provides like a routine status update. You get updated about any changes in the market or in the market demand, and you are able to inspect the outcome of the sprint. Then it also helps to make sure that expectations are met. The right product that fits the market or users' needs are created. So remember when I started, I was like, it's usually done in the context of a sprint, 2 weeks to 1 month. And imagine if you have to wait for 2 weeks to actually learn about the market demand. I mean, it's not really a good thing. So making your sprints 2 to 4 weeks is really good because it gives you time to get these feedbacks on time and adapt it to your work. And then the sprint retrospective is usually called the sprint retro for short. And I mentioned earlier that the empirical Scrum pillars are expectation, transparency, and adaptation. So this sprint retrospective helps in adaptation. Like it's heavy on adaptation. I mean, it also helps to inspect and it's also for transparency's sake, but it's more heavy on adaptation. And also one of Agile principles, it explains that the team should reflect on how to become more effective, then tune and adjust accordingly. So this Scrum event is like a very good ceremony to adjust and adapt, because this Scrum ceremony is like, it helps you to just inspect what has happened in the sprint, like inspect your processes and how you can be better as a team. It is the last formal event of the sprint, and this event is focused on the Scrum team and their processes, like I said. So after the end of the retro, a plan for improvement is created, and this plan is what they intend to make in the next sprint. That was what I was talking about when I was explaining the sprint planning, like the retrospective commitment, because you have to put this retrospective commitment, this plan that you've all agreed as a team, in consideration when you are planning for your next sprint. So I will talk about one of the ways you, as a Scrum Master, you can facilitate this event. So first, it is very important to have a good setting whereby all the team members, they feel safe enough to talk about or engage in the conversation that will take place. And it is important to know that this this Scrum ceremony, this sprint retrospective is only meant for the Scrum team. No stakeholders, no key members of the management, just the product owner, the Scrum Master, development team, just them. And like I said, it is very important to create a safe space for them so that they can talk about whatever they want to talk about without them feeling as if somebody is watching or like they are not free. So a good way to start this meeting is to remind them of the prime directive by Norman Kurt, because it says that regardless of whatever we discuss in this meeting, let us just understand that and let us believe truly that we all did a good job. Like everyone truly did their best. They did the best job that they could do. Like given what was known at the time, given their skills, the resources available, and the situation at hand, like we all did a good job. You have to let them feel like whatever we finally discussed as a team in this meeting, we did a good job. Just put that at the back of your mind that we actually did a good job. So after this, you continue with an icebreaker game. So this game again also helps to set the mood, make them relax, create like an informal environment, because it just it makes them be in the mood, it sets the mood, and the team will be able to comfortably share their thoughts. You can play games like two truths and a lie, or maybe two lies and a truth. You just let the team prepare to a three statement, and everyone guess what the lie is, or maybe it's two lies and a truth. You let them guess what the truth is. I mean, it's a very good game to not only make the mood nice, but it also creates like a bond. Like you get to know more about your team members. It could be three statements about themselves. You really get to know more about your team members. You could also play any other energizing game, like maybe guessing emojis, or any game really, any energizing game, any energizers or icebreaker game. Again, these games will help to create a more relaxed environment so that the team can comfortably share their ideas, and so that they can fully participate in the meeting. Then you briefly revisit the last retrospective commitment. You would ask questions like, as the team addressed the improvement? If so, what was the impact, or are there any improvements yet to be delivered? So maybe the last retrospective commitment is like, let's come to meetings early. Let's come to meetings early. So you can just remind the team that, okay, our last retrospective, we discussed about this. What do you think about it? Do you think we're now coming to meetings early? Do you think we're now early in our meetings? And then you just get their opinion. If there's been change or not, just get their opinions about it. And then you can also look at the team's metrics together as a team. I feel like it's not only when you have your sprint review that you review your metrics. You can also review your metrics in retrospective as a team. And then you just see how well you guys did. Oh, we initially committed 40 tickets, 40 product backlog items. Maybe it could be 20. I mean, I'm just saying it for an example. If you could commit like 20 product backlog items into that sprint, and then you guys were able to even add more. You were able to add 10 more. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to discuss it as a team, to promote team spirit and motivate the team as well. You can discuss it. You can discuss about how well you guys did over the days. On Tuesday, we were able to move 10 product backlog items to done. It's a good thing, guys. Good job. Motivate the team with this team's metrics. So after this, you can now move the retrospective. You can now move this meeting to the retrospective board, where they can share their thoughts about how the sprint went. Sometimes, really, it could be challenging for the team to deeply inspect the sprint. It could be really challenging for them to really think about the sprint. So, as a Scrum Master, you could just help them. You could just help bring up ideas to help trigger their thoughts. You could ask questions like, oh, what went well during the sprint, guys? What do you think went well? And what did you think went otherwise? Like, what did not go well? So you put these questions in your whiteboard or your retrospective board and just allow them to fill it up with their thoughts. For example, this is an example of 2 lies and 1 truth. You put in their names on the board. Then when they come to the meeting, you just take their Post-its and put in all what they think about themselves. And then you just let people vote on the lie. And you may not only use what went well or what did not go well. You could also use other questions like, what has helped us move forward as a team? What held us back? And how could we do things differently? So you make them feel all these things so that they have like deep insight. They think about all these things well. So like they need to make a list of all these things and they need to talk about why things were great and how to keep that going. They will also make a list of what did not go well, what held them back, and how to improve on them. Then after looking at all these lists, they need to talk about what they need to focus on and what they need to improve on in the next sprint. Sometimes, really, this list may be a lot. They could fill in so many things in the continue, in the stop, in the event. Like they could fill in a lot into what went well and what went wrong. It really depends, especially if it is a new team, if it is a team that is still in their forming stage, like they might have a lot of things to talk about. So if this list is long and you just have to recommend that they choose 1 or 2 items that they should work on in the next sprint. So you guide the team as a Scrum Master into identifying the item that will bring them the most value, then help them to choose the most valuable item to work on. For example, you can just make them vote on the most valuable item. Maybe after they filled it in, you could just make them vote. So the highest votes is what you move into this hacked column. So this is what we should do next. It could be maybe the top 3 highest votes. It could be from the event. It could be from the stop. It could be from continue. Maybe they say, let's continue the team spirit, or let's continue the way we communicate. It could be anything. It could be let's stop talking to ourselves with less respect, or it could be anything. So they could just vote, and the highest vote is what you would act on in the next sprint. So yeah, the highest vote will be actioned, and the improvement would be like the action plan or the improvement plan for the next sprint. So it will be the retrospective commitment for the next sprint. And so you make sure that this selected item remains visible to the team at all times. So this selected item that is in the act, you could just put it on the product backlog. Make it visible on the board. Let them see that this is what we have decided to do this sprint. So there could be other ideas like thumbs up, thumbs down, new ideas. And personally, I like to add this recognition or shout out column because it helps to improve team bonding. Like you could just give a shout out to the person that helped you the most this sprint. Give a shout out to people that to just recognize someone. So you just see people putting in names of their colleagues. So this guy helped me when I had impediment and he was really there. He made sure that it was settled, anything, honestly, anyone, any name. And it's really nice. It makes people feel good. It makes the team feel that, yeah, they're actually recognized for every effort they put in the sprint. And the tools you can use as a Scrum Master for this sprint retrospective is Miro, Moral. You could use Azure DevOps. There's like a column for retrospective in Azure DevOps. You could also use Mentimeter. I personally like this Mentimeter because it's almost like a PowerPoint. So all these tools, you can use them for your sprint retrospective or any other whiteboard software. And if it is not a remote team, maybe it's the team that actually that they don't work virtually, they work in the office on site. And this could be done on an actual whiteboard. So you, as a Scrum Master, ensure that everyone has sticky notes and they have writing materials, pencils or markers or biros. Make sure that they are provided to everyone so that they can be able to add in their thoughts on the whiteboard itself, on the actual whiteboard itself. And remember that this meeting is not to make the team perfect. This meeting is just to help them, it's just to drive them to an effective team. It's just to make them be effective. And yeah, the time frame for this sprint retrospective is within 1 to 4 hours, really, depending on the sprint. But really, it could just take 1 to 2 hours, depending on the sprint length. And the importance of this sprint retrospective, aside from the fact that it helps the team to adapt itself, it allows the team to talk about what went well and what needs improvement freely. It identifies risks. Maybe one of the opinions given by the team may be team members are not clear enough about how they communicate failures in the pipeline. Maybe one of the QAs have issues with their automation and they are not communicating it well. As your development team or you as a Scrum Master, you could also see it. You could also notice it and you can talk about it in your retrospective. It is also important to note that this Scrum ceremonies is not just for the development team. The Scrum Master as well participates in it. The Scrum Master also plays the icebreakers or the energizer game. The Scrum Master also puts in post-its about what went well, what did not go. Everybody participates in this Scrum event. And yeah, like I said, it could also be lateness to meetings or team members are not collaborative enough. So all these are easily identified and easily addressed. And again, I would like to say that it is important to know that it is nice, it is good for your sprint to not be more than 1 month. Because imagine if your sprint again is 2 months long. Imagine that it will take you 2 months to actually talk about what went wrong. But if it's 2 weeks, you have enough time to actually come back and talk about all of these things. You actually have time to come back and talk about what went wrong in the last 2 weeks. So imagine coming back after 2 months, it's just too much time. And then it helps the team members to be transparent about what they feel about the sprint. It helps them to build trust among themselves as well. And finally, the backlog refinement. So this backlog refinement could mean 2 things, really. First, it could mean that it could be an ongoing process used by the product owner to get more information about the product or the project needs and requirements. So the product owner is totally accountable for this backlog refinement because it is a continuous process. The backlog refinement is also an actual meeting that the Scrum team have after the midpoint of the sprint. We will find and order the backlog. It is done at the midpoint of the sprint because if it is held too early, maybe it is held at the first day or the second day of the sprint or the third day of the sprint, if it is done too early, yeah, the order of the product backlog may change, or the requirements may change, and you may have to hold another session. Imagine if after you refine the product backlog, and then you refine it to the three.
Can you mute yourself,
Hello,
please?
who's that, please?
Thank you. So okay, thank you. And maybe you start the 2 or the 3 or the 4 of, thank you. So maybe you start this your backlog refinement in the 2, 3, or 4 of 14 days sprints, and you've done the refinement. Then I don't know, the stakeholders could just call your product owner that, so there's been a new priority. Now the product owner have to now start calling for another refinement session. Then it's not really, it's just better for you to have it after the midpoint of the sprint. Now, if it is too late in the sprint, maybe you have it at the 12, or maybe on the Friday, the last working Friday of your sprint. The product owner may not have enough time to gather additional requirement that the team may need or ask for. Maybe during the sprint refinement, then the developer feel like, oh, this product backlog item it does not have everything that we need. I mean, maybe they feel like they don't have enough details, and then the product owner have to now go back to the stakeholders to get additional information. But then if you do it at the end of the sprint, there's no time to do all of this, and then you come to your sprint planning, and then you now start talking about it again. I mean, it's just better to have it in the middle point of your sprint. So personally, do it on this 5 or this 6, 7 marks on the 7 of the sprint, so that the product owner have enough time to gather enough additional requirement that they need to gather. So one way to facilitate this event is allowing the product owner present the stories for the next sprint. The development team ask questions and get clarification on the work, because this will provide like guidance to the product owner on what additional information is needed to get the product backlog item ready for the next sprint. So when a product backlog item is ready, what does it mean? It means that it is small enough to be completed in a single sprint. It also means that all the dependencies are identified so that they can be managed, and that acceptance criteria has been properly defined so that it can clearly reflect the definition of done. The product owner or the business analyst will review the product backlog items and make sure that they contain the appropriate items, that is the user stories, the acceptance criteria, the wireframe, etc., and that the product backlog items are properly prioritized and ready for the next sprint planning. Remember that during the sprint planning, the development team collectively decide on what product backlog items to be committed amongst a prioritized list of product backlog items that is product owner have selected. So this prioritization of product backlog item is done in this meeting, in this backlog refinement. So this prioritization of, okay, this is what we should do this sprint. This is what we should aim to achieve. This is what we should develop this sprint. So the order of priority is done in this meeting. The product owner or the business analyst ensure that all these product backlog items follow techniques like the invest technique or the SMART technique. That means this product backlog item that we want to commit next sprint, it is an independent story. it is negotiable and it is very flexible. It would add value to the product goal. The development team can estimate it. It is short and memorable, that it is small and you can test it. And when you say the SMART technique, it means it is specific to the product goal. You can measure it, and that means you can estimate it and you can achieve it. It is relevant again to the sprint goal and it is time bound. And although, like I said, the Scrum guide does not say that the backlog refinement is like a Scrum ceremony. I mean, according to scrum.org. But I must tell you that this backlog refinement is a very important meeting in a sprint. Very, very important. And this leads us to the importance of backlog refinement. One major importance is that it reduces the time for your sprint planning meeting. So if instead of, I mean, some companies, some team actually do sprint backlog refinement during their sprint planning. So instead of the team doing the refinement during the sprint planning, the product backlog item that should be estimated are already pre-selected. So they just come to the sprint planning, they just select, they just pick out all these things and they just estimate it. You know, for example, like the team has already done backlog refinement. So all those clarification I was talking about in the sprint planning, you know, all those questions that the development team would need or would have, they've already clarified it in this backlog refinement. So when you are coming for your sprint plan, it's just relatively very short. You are done. You just come and you estimate and you go, you know, estimation, then they now just move it to the sprint backlog. And after they move it to the sprint backlog, they set their sprint goal. So you don't have to now start talking about, oh, there's one thing is missing in this ticket, or we have more questions in this product backlog item. You know, all of those things are just, all those time is just like taking off. And then it helps to make sure that the product backlog item for the next sprint is ready and properly prioritized. In this meeting, product backlog items that may not be in line with the product goal may be removed from the backlog. So also this meeting could also help you to clean up the product backlog and make it more managed and eliminate backlog chaos. The team will also understand where the product backlog stand in terms of bugs raised and fixed, available features in the backlog and available stories. And all of this just promotes transparency as well. So conclusively, we have 4 Scrum ceremonies and 1 backlog refinement that is not an official Scrum ceremony by Scrum.org, but it is also a very, very, very important Scrum event. So we have the sprint planning, the daily Scrum, sprint retrospective, sprint review, and we also have the backlog refinement. So thank you very much. I don't know if anybody have any question. Okay, I can see some hands raised. Eyitayo, please go on.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much for that delivery. Just one question. With all these ceremonies, apart from the daily Scrum or the stand-up and the retrospective, is there a limit on the number of meetings you can hold? For instance, the sprint review within a sprint?
No, there's no limit. Like I said, I would like to state that Scrum is very flexible. It does not mean that you cannot have other meetings. For example, when I was talking about the daily Scrum, that I said there's parking lot. The parking lot is also a meeting. So it does not mean that your developers cannot feel like, oh, let's come together and talk about this thing that would help us. Or in some organization, they do like developers roundtable where they just talk about things that would help the development team grow. But these 5 ones are very, very important. Like you have to have these 5 ceremonies in your sprint. But it does not mean that you cannot have other meetings that would help the team progress. Do you understand?
Yeah, so that means you can have several sprint reviews within a sprint.
Several sprint reviews. I'm not sure if you can have, because I mean, depends on your stakeholders. In my organization, they have sprint reviews every week because the stakeholders are very difficult to manage and they just always want to know, like, let's have another meeting every week. So it really, like, ways of working in every organization is different. So it depends on what you agree as a team.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, we have I'm so sorry if I'm not
Yes, I'm
pronouncing
here.
it. I'm so sorry.
No worries at all.
Question.
Okay, so my question is, I know that at the beginning is when the product backlog items are gathered, right, by the PO or BA, as the case may be. So is it that all the requirements that are gathered into that backlog are then divided across the sprints or into each sprint backlog, or as the project moves on, different product backlogs are done and then divided into sprint backlog? I don't know if you understand the question.
Yes, I understand your question. You're saying that sometimes, like, you have so many product backlog items, like maybe 50 or 100. So you want to know if the team can say, okay, this first 20, let's do it in sprint one. This next 20, let's do it. Yeah, so like I said, requirements change a lot in sprint. Like Scrum is really flexible, I must say, because you can do sprint planning now. And then your stakeholder will be like, you know what, let's not have this logo again on our website, or let's not have this type of footer. You understand? So, but BAs have already developed product backlog items and it's already in the backlog, in the product backlog. So now they have to go back and like remove that from their backlog and put in the new requirements. So it is as the sprint goes on, you learn, like, it's flexible. You learn from, that's why I said it should take 2 weeks so that you can get enough feedback. And then the BA would show the stakeholder that, okay, this is what we want to work on in the next sprint. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, go ahead. Okay, you understand? So it's really flexible. So you don't divide it. You don't say in the next, in the second sprint, let's work on this. No. As the sprint goes.
So basically, it's just one product backlog that you have throughout your project, but you can always revisit.
Yeah, you can always revisit.
So in that product backlog, you just choose what you want to do for the first sprint and then leave the other items in that product backlog for when the first sprint is completed, then you come back to it. Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get that question. Sorry.
Okay, so I said that it is just one product backlog that we'll have for the entire project, but we can always update and review.
Of course, yes.
So when you choose items that goes into the immediate sprint or the the next sprint that you want to work on, you leave the other ticket in the product backlog until the sprint that you're going into has ended.
Okay. Yes. So that was why I said that the development team move the product backlog item from product backlog to the sprint backlog. So there's product backlog and there's sprint backlog. You know, it's like one of the Scrum artifacts. So yeah, when they complete the sprint, they review the sprint backlog and they close the sprint and they start another sprint and they have another sprint backlog. So product backlog, but sprint backlog changes per sprint.
Okay. Then the second question, at what point during the sprint does a BA break down the requirements into user stories?
Most times is at the beginning of the at the beginning of the project, you know, requirement, and they break them down into user stories. But don't forget, the Scrum is flexible, and they can keep breaking down requirements as the sprint goes on, as they learn more about the project.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, hey, I think.
Hi there, good evening. Thank you so much for the delivery. So my question is, when you say a sprint can take up to 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and for example, for 2 weeks, you can use 2 hours, and for 4 weeks, you can use 4 hours. How do you divide those times? But for example, if we say 2 weeks, how do we divide those 2 hours? Is it divided by the days or how many minutes?
No, actually, it's not divided by the day. It's based on your team's working agreements. There are some teams really that do sprint planning, 2 week sprint planning under 1 hour. Some people under 30 minutes, really. It depends on what works for your team. A 2 week sprint, you could do your sprint planning for 1 week, for 1 hour. Sometimes 45 minutes, you're done. Especially if you have sprint refinements. When you have sprint refinements, when you come for your sprint planning, trust me, you may not even take up to an hour in your sprint planning, So it's not like there's a math or like there's a formula to actually calculate this. There is none. It just really depends on what works for your sprint. And for your team, and as a Scrum Master, always remember to ensure that when your team agrees on a way of working, when your team develop their team charter and they agree that this is how we want to be doing our sprint planning. Okay, let's do our sprint planning for 1 hour. Ensure that it is time boxed. It's within that hour that they've agreed on. I don't know if you understand.
Yes. So basically, for example, we do a sprint planning on a Monday.
Yes.
Then on Tuesday, what happens again? Because I'm just a bit confused as to all the ceremonies that we do as a Scrum Master.
Of course, I understand. So if you do your sprint planning on Monday, for example, you've done your sprint planning, the next day you just do your daily stand-up, like to just inspect the progress. Just like I said at the beginning of the session, that I said that after the sprint planning, after you've established a plan, the team will follow up on the progress of the task by having a daily stand-up or a daily scrum, as the case may be. Yeah, so on Monday, you've done your daily your sprint planning. You've planned for the sprint. The next day, you just come and inspect the progress of that plan. Okay, we've planned for this thing. How are we doing? You understand? How are we doing in this sprint? So that's why it's daily. You do it daily. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And Stan, can I call you Stan?
Yes, please. Everybody,
Thank you.
everybody finds that easier to do. Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for the presentation. My question really is, I just want to find out, in an organization, can a Scrum team handle different projects, be in charge of different projects simultaneously?
Well, can a Scrum team handle different
Or is that
projects?
something that is not?
I would say that to just help to keep the team focused, it's just good for the development team to, like, one team to handle one project. There are cases whereby the Scrum Masters are, like, one Scrum Master is a Scrum Master for 3 different projects.
Okay.
But different team, but they just assist is the word. They assist 3 different teams that are running 3 different projects. But it is just really good for your development team, and it's good for your development team to just focus so that they have like a sense of what they are doing, and you understand. But as a Scrum Master, yeah, it's possible that you can assist more than one team in your organization. It's very, very possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And BC, can I call you BC if it's fine? BC.
Yes, you can call me BC. Oh, thank you, Temidaya, for your delivery. I would like to know, at the end of the sprints, any undone item, will it be moved back to the product backlog to be committed to a new sprint? Or will it just automatically roll over to start a new sprint?
Good, thank you for that question. Yeah, because it's very possible a lot of times whereby the team do not like complete what they projected. It's very possible. So it depends. If it's a priority, excuse me, if it's a priority, it rolls over to the next sprint automatically. They put it back to the backlog. Then in the next sprint, they recommit it to the next sprint and put it in the next sprint backlog. So they didn't finish one, they didn't finish some of their commitments, some of their product backlog items from their previous sprints. They take it back to the backlog after that sprint ends. And in the next sprint planning, they recommit it and push it into the next sprint backlog. So yes, it rolls over to the next sprint. Do you understand?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. And Olamide?
Thank you, Temi, and thanks for all those that have asked questions. Thanks for those questions. It has helped to give more clarity. And as regards this, I just want to get more point as regards the difference between the project and the product backlog. Can we say is it the same thing to say project backlog or product backlog? Does it mean the same thing? And the other question is for backlog refinement, is it just for sprint backlog or for product backlog too?
So I didn't get your other question, your second question. What was it?
Backlog refinement.
Yes.
Is it meant for sprint backlog or also for product backlog?
Thank you for those questions. So just to answer your second question, it is product backlog refinement because the sprint backlog is just for that sprint. They don't refine, no, you don't refine the sprint backlog. You only refine the product backlog. And can you remind me your first question again? I'm so sorry for taking it back.
Is the product backlog same as project backlog? Anything like that?
Thank you. No, it's not. It's product backlog. I'm not really sure I've heard anything like project backlog. It's product backlog. And yes, you only refine your product backlog because the sprint backlog is for the development team. I mean, this kind of questions could arise, could come up in your PSM, like who is the owner, who manages the sprint backlog, is the development. Those are for development because that's where they bring out their plan. Like that's where they put their plan for that sprint. So, you don't refine the sprint backlog. You only refine the product backlog. Thank you. Do you understand?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Sandra.
Hi, good evening. Sorry to ask this question again. I don't know if you answered it. Following on one of the questions that was asked before about the ceremonies, what is like the order? So you got the sprint planning, and then let's say you have a 2-week sprint. You got the sprint planning, you got the daily stand-up, and then the sprint review will come in a few days afterwards. And then it will be the backlog refinement. And then would you have another daily stand-up on that day again? Like there's an order to it, obviously, but what's the order? If you get my question.
Yeah, I do. Thank you so much, Sandra, for that question. So yes, your sprint planning initiates the sprint. You do it once, one sprint planning per sprint. So only if you want to, maybe you feel like you have more capacity and you can add more to the sprint, you could just maybe just do it in your daily. Okay, let's add more product backlog items to our sprint backlog, you understand? But then the first thing is your sprint backlog. Then following your sprint, your sprint planning, your sprint planning. Following your sprint planning, you have your daily Scrum. that happens every day at the same time in the same place. You understand? And then after that, in the middle of your sprint, maybe on day 7, you do your sprint refinement. Even if you have your sprint refinement on day 7, you still have to do your daily stand-up. Probably your daily stand-up is 10 a.m. every day. You still have to do your daily stand-up every day. And then your sprint refinement would come maybe in the afternoon, in the evening of day 7, not bad. And then after you do your sprint refinement, you now have your sprint review. Maybe your sprint review can be on a Thursday, like the second week, if it's a 2-week sprint, like the Thursday of the next working week of the second week of the sprint. You do your sprint review, talk to your stakeholders, talk about how the sprint went, you review the sprint with your stakeholders, yeah. And then on a Friday, that is the sprint retrospective, which is supposed to be the last event of your sprint. The sprint retrospective is the last one. So remember, the sprint planning is the first event. Sprint retrospective is the last event. Sprint refinement happens in between your sprints. Daily stand-up happens every day at the same time and at the same place. And then sprint review, maybe second to the last day of your sprint, like because it's second to the last event of your sprint. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Sorry, one more question. You said the sprint refinement, is that the same as backlog refinement?
Yes, I'm so sorry. The product backlog refinement. So you refine the product backlog. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Daniel.
Yeah, dear King. Yeah, thanks, Timmy, for the presentation. Very nice and clear. Just one question. All these daily stand-ups and the product backlogs and all the meetings that will be held or facilitated by the Scrum Master, who keeps the record? Are there documentations to be filling, or who acts like the secretary to keep the minutes of the meetings and stuff? Is there something like that?
Okay, that's a good question, really. And there's nothing like secretary, really, that keeps the meeting. And then everything that you do in your sprint is already very visible to everyone and transparent. For example, let's talk about the sprint planning. The sprint planning is already visible because, like I said, visualization is key. You are already seeing it in your sprint backlog. What you've decided to come into that sprint is already there in your sprint backlog every time. Even especially if you are using Azure or Jira as a management software, when you just go to when you go to your sprint backlog, you can always see sprint backlog of other sprints. It's already documented there. You could just always go back if you want to get more clarification. And don't get me wrong, like I said, ways of working of everyone is different. Maybe I decide to always, I feel like it's just easier for me to go to my sprint backlog to check previous sprint. Maybe that's just me. Some other Scrum Masters usually keep like a diary just to quickly jot down things. It really depends on how it will be easy for you. But every member of your team can always go back to the sprint backlog to check what has been committed in a particular sprint. For a retrospective, it is important that as a Scrum Master, you make it visible to everyone. Put it on your product backlog. And some other Scrum Masters put it on their conference page, or they put it on their Teams channel, and they just say, okay, for this sprint, this is what we have decided to commit. This is what we talked about. This is our, some Scrum Masters also measure the team's health. Is my team happy? What's their level of happiness? Then they just put all those things in their conference page or their wiki page or maybe their Teams channel, just for transparency. And for the sprint review too, we could also document that sprint review as well in your wiki page. Just document, okay, these are the new requirement that the stakeholders spoke about. But trust me, even that requirement would always be on your backlog. Everything is always on the software management tool. You understand? So everything, all these things, all these ceremonies are visible to everyone on the backlog. That's why, as a Scrum Master, go heavy on your wiki page, go heavy on your conference page every time, because it's easy to direct people to your conference page and your wiki page or your Teams channel. So as a Scrum Master, you could just, it's not like it's like 100% compulsory, but if it makes your work easier, you could always remember to document everything that you do on your wiki page or on your conference page. Do you understand?
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Eitayo, finally, you have your hands up.
Yes, thank you very much. Just one quick one. Of all these Scrum ceremonies, is it just a sprint review that the stakeholders are welcome to attend?
Well, yeah, but they could come to the sprint planning, but they are not participating. Maybe they just want to look or something. But really, ideally, it's just supposed to be the sprint review. Sometimes, like, there's some books I read and some articles, and they just talk about how sometimes the stakeholders could just be in the sprint planning, but they are not welcome in the retrospective. That is 100% very important. This stakeholders should never ever be in your retrospective meeting, because it's just for your team. Do you understand? Okay.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And Jibril.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi,
Thank you
Jibril.
very much. I appreciate your delivery. I think my question is more to the admin. I wanted to ask, I know before onboarding and being put into the team, various team, there's there's a timetable that have been drawn that cover next week. So I wanted to know if that's the continues after we've been put into a group, or we're going to have a different timetable henceforth.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions. Thank you so much for the questions. I had a very wonderful time answering them, and I really enjoyed giving this delivery as well. And yeah, that will be all from me. And thank you, and have a good night, everyone. I don't know if the